So non-duality in XI means that you understand that there are, say, millions of possibilities of you, or even billions of possibilities, or infinite possibilities of you. Okay, that's far from, say, the non-duality or non-dualistic approach, or dualistic approach of, again, religions and so on like that. So what does that mean? So from an XI perspective, okay, and this is how I've seen it, again, outside of how this reality works. Again, stepping outside, and especially the second near death, is really allowed to see how we render ourselves in this reality. Okay, and again, the more we understand it, again, this is the first principle method, where you get to the top level, where there is very few or hardly any exceptions to the rule. Okay, so you are here, example, and this is your light. This would be your spirit. Okay, this is your spirit in full form. This is your limitless self. Okay, so with that in mind, you are all possibilities at all times. Okay, so with that information, you can't really say understand yourself, or you can't say experience yourself one at a time. So how do you do that? Well, the first, what you do, or you come up with, or a group of spirits come up with, or a godhead, whatever it is, we'll talk about that when we get into divinity and so on like that. We start to create, say, space and time. So the first filter, and here's the deal, this is your pure light. Okay, this here, and again, it's not the best drawing. This is your pure light. So the first filter here is can I do this here? Is space and time. Okay. So with space and time, it allows us to understand, or and again, I see space and time very different than a lot of scientists. I see space and time as a molecule, or a rendering. So when you walk into, say, a certain environment, or in a certain, say, point in time, or a certain coordinate, say, in the fourth dimension, it allows you to render it the way everybody else sees it. Right. So, and again, that's another subject we can talk about. So this first filter, though, it creates space and time for us. Okay, it allows us to delineate, or it allows us to separate all those things, or all those infinite possibilities that we are. Because how many of you believe that if you were, say, if you're an atheist, if you have infinite possibilities, right? Or if you're a scientist, you know deep inside that you have infinite possibilities. If you're religious or spiritual, you would go, well, that's my spirit, and my spirit is limitless. So either way, I don't really care about the labels. It's really the same, end trajectory, right? Or the same definition. We're limitless beings. We're limitless possibilities. We know it deep inside us. And we know it from we know it from the movie, Star Wars, where it was, what is it? The power within, or is it the force within, the power within, the oneness, the grandness, and so on and so on and so on throughout history, through religious books, through science books, and so on like that. They always talk about, say, the limitless possibilities that humans have, or the human potential, right? So in order to understand that, again, one by one, so we don't get confused, just like Einstein says, is that, all things will happen at once if it wasn't for space and time. So the first filter that we see ourselves through is through space and time. The second filter, the second filter here, would be basically, and again, I'm not going to go through all the filters. The second filter here would be, say, the physics of physics of this reality. Physics of this reality. Okay. So it's the physics of this reality. And that means, gravitation, electromagnetism, how your body structure works, and so on. Like, not how your body structure works, but the universe, right? The planetary systems, the mechanisms of time and space, the logistics of how time and space work here. Okay. And then I'm not going to go through all the layers that there are. So now what's happening for you is that, again, you have these filters that are set up for you, right? Filter after filter after filter, which creates you in a non-dualistic form right off the bat. Okay. So right now, there is you, the non-dualistic version of you here, and then over here, you've already split yourself into two. Now there are filters here, and they just keep going. Filters, filters, filters. Nature, where you are, planetary systems, how your body works, and then there's a filter here. Again, there's hundreds, thousands of filters that say and this is where you start to come in. This filter is, I would call it the human filter. Okay, so without this filter, and I can give you examples if you really want, or again, take notes and I can answer the questions later. This is a human filter. This basically tells you that you're human. This basically tells you that when you are rendering yourself, just like a projector, just imagine this as a light, and your light is shining, through this line here. Okay. And we'll draw this line a little further down. Okay. This light is shining through. Okay, this light is shining through. With each filter, you render yourself very differently. Obviously, these are, say, mechanical filters. Again, the logistics or the back-end programming. So you can have another filter called human. So within this human filter, this is where your like culture comes in, right? There's a filter for your culture. The culture is, ethnicity, color, skin color, and so on like that. That's why Middle Easterns look a certain way. It's because within the human filter, you have, say, a Middle Eastern filter, you have a Chinese filter, you have, a white filter, you have whatever filter, it's in there for you. Okay. And then you have another filter, age, about the age frame or history of when you were born. So people or kids that were born, say, in the 1920s or 1930s or whatever age, or 2022, they have a different, say, consciousness or a different, say, software update than kids that are born in different generations. Okay, so that's what that's about. So what time frame that what your filter is. And this line, by the way, goes through this. Okay. I should draw it like this just to be more accurate for you. Sorry about that. So you have another filter here. This is like female, male, and so on like that. Okay. There's a filter for that. Okay. And then within this filter, then becomes, so these are all human filters, right? And this human filter here, this main filter that we see ourselves, right here. This one shows us or holds on to all the experiences that, and this is really important. That's why we need to understand this in order for us to become divine or to clear ourselves so we can enlighten or self-actualize. So what happens is, and I know this is just like I'm lecturing it like a college course, like a college professor, but there's so much information. You don't have to understand all the concepts, guys, because you already know this. You already run this in your system. I'm just helping you remember. So there's nothing new. You're already doing this. I'm just helping you, again, understand it at a conceptual level or at a logic or conscious level for you. Okay. So this human filter basically is a storehouse of all the possibilities that humans have or can do. Okay. Including all the possibilities that have happened to humans. So for example, if this is your say, sex, feminine, masculine, it doesn't really matter. If that's your preference, okay, there's a filter for you there. Okay, so what this means, let me finish this other thought and then I'll come back to that. So this is where, again, you define yourself as feminine or masculine. Okay, it doesn't matter if you're gay or, lesbian or heterosexual or anything else between. There's a filter for you. Okay, but the main filter is this. Okay, and then within this, you have your own, say, like family signature. So this would be, again, this would be, say, a family signature. This is, where like all, I don't know, all, say, like my family, all the kids that are, look a certain way, right? So within that human filter, within, there's family filters. So this would be a family filter, and within your family filter, then there is this personal filter. So within your personal filter, what happens, and this would be, say, a group of filters, and each filter, by the way, has a group, but I'll just specify, this group filter here. So this filter here is your personal frequency signature. Okay, so your personal frequency signature basically is about you. So this, or you would call it your DNA or your genetics, right? Your genetics, the hair, your curliness of your hair, the kinkiness of your hair, the color of your hair, and so on, like that. Again, there's a filter for that. Okay, your abuse patterns that you're running, there's a filter for that. Again, the family dynamics, and then what you've taken away from the family dynamics. There's a pattern on you being lucky. There's a filter for you being unhappy or happy or healthy or unhealthy. There's a filter for you for having a propensity of having heart disease when you age, and so on and so on and so on. Again, these are all the things that we just think are random, or we just think it's genetics and we can't change. But what I'm telling you here is that they're just filters, guys. If we start to become awakened, if we start to understand the duality of our nature, then we start to understand that, well, we can remove some of these filters and become more divine. And then that's how we become enlightened, right? So again, most people think all these things, the importance of all this is that you think that you are all this. And then this part, your spirit, is separate from all this, okay? And that's how most people think. Your spirit, your physical body, again, dualistic, right? A God, you, again, dualistic, that God has power over everything, and so on and so on and so on. And that's where the problems with, again, non-duality or dualistic definitions occur. And again, like I said, most occur here in the brain. It doesn't work that way. You're too far gone, or it's too hard to control, because what happens by the time it hits your brain happened already here. So by the time your brain or your outward action, and this is the stage of our life right here, for you. Okay, and I'll create this here. Let's see, not the best. This is the stage of your life. This is where you perform. Okay, there you go. So this is your performance. Okay, so through all these filters that you're running, you are right here. And this is how, again, forgive my drawing here. This is how you are rendering yourself. And this is how you render yourself, by the way. Okay. You've got extra long arms. Anyway, so this is how you render yourself through all these filters. Now, this goes before what happens in the mind. And I just want to impress upon that because if you want to become, say, if you want to understand divinity, or if you want to enlighten or self-actualize, you have to go beyond the mind, right? How do you do that? Well, I'll explain that, by practical applications as we get there, but we just need to know the logistics first. Okay. And again, if you have questions, please write them down and I'll answer them later. So the point is that all these filters render you, especially your family dynamics. Most of you, over 90% of who you think you are, you're not. Who you think you are is you you from your mom, you from your dad, and then, granddad, and so on and so on. So you're the latest, to me, is when you were born, you were the latest software version of your genetic family. This filter, I believe it was here, right? Your genetic family. Okay. And by the way, some of these filters, this actually should be here. So there we go. So this is your genetic family. Okay. Anyway, so overall, in this scenario, there's a filter for everything that you experience. If there's no filter, you won't experience it. Simple as that. So if your dominant pattern, say, for example, in your family is abuse or bad luck or getting ill, right? There's a filter inside you. If you don't remove that filter, your life, no matter what you do outside of this rendering of yourself, you will always have bad luck. Okay. Or you'll go from, say, surgery to surgery, or an experience of feeling ill here, maybe healing yourself from one disease and then going to another disease, and so on and so on and so on, and perpetuates. Or if you're having a love relationship, right, you have a messed up filter within your personal frequency signature. Again, the millions of frequencies or the millions of possibilities that's in your genetic makeup. Okay. Excuse me. So if you're not removing, again, any of these filters, you're going to continue on. This is why many individuals, and how many people have done that, they've broken them up with one relationship to find themselves in another relationship with the same outcome, right? It happens all the time, and then the same outcome. So again, or if you're in a business scenario, right? Or if you're in a money situation, no matter what happens, for example, people who win the lottery, if they don't have a proper filter here on how to handle money, they win the lottery, and this is statistics, within 6 months to a year, they're worse off than before they won the lottery financially, and probably mentally and socially and emotionally as well. Okay. Why? Because this filter doesn't jive with their reality. Okay. All these filters create the reality that you experience. So think of it that way. Okay. Again, and you can write it down. So again, pen and paper handy if you want, write it in your book, on your notepad or whatever. Again, these filters dictate how you create your life here. It's not psychology. It's not your belief system. It's not your actions. It's the filters here that dictate your reality. Okay. So let's take a deep breath in. So just one more thing. How much time do we got? Yeah. So one more thing before we go into divinity, I believe is next, is that this filter here, humans. Okay. So this is a record keeper. Okay. This is the records of all the things that have happened to humans. So all the things that have happened to humans, including the great things, right? I don't know, new technologies, new awarenesses of self, and so on like that. New technologies, not so much, because that's another outside of human possibilities. But once it comes into, say, human invention or human use, it becomes part of this filter. And again, these are the different classes I teach for, like CEOs or inventors or creators or actors, or the 1% who want to go beyond the human potential. Right? How do you access the creative side of you? How do you create a new invention, the next best thing, like a Tesla would, and so on like that? Those are things that I teach, outside in the personal sessions and so on that I do. But for the important thing about this filter here is that all the possibilities that humans have gone through, okay, slavery, child abuse, all the things that have happened to women, all the things that have happened to men, everything, the abuse patterns, the starvations, PTSD, the torturous, the killings, and, all the control mechanisms and so on like that, the atrocities basically that have happened to humans are logged within this filter. Okay. It's very important to understand because these filters here are dictated by the filter above. Okay, so every filter is dictated obviously by the filter above, and so on and so on and so on and so on. So no matter how pure you are here, it doesn't matter. It just depends on what filter that you're running yourself here. Okay, and this is where duality comes in as well. So the problem with that is that think of all the atrocities that many of you feel, and especially with what's happening today, right? What's happening today is that we're waking up. We're understanding that there's a lot of, say, situations that we don't want to be part of anymore. You know, we don't want to be part of the Ukraine war anymore. Well, that's why war doesn't feel right. This war, you know, between the Russia and Ukraine doesn't feel right anymore. A lot of, say, things that the governments do or your family does to you doesn't feel right anymore. The reason why is we're waking up, we're consciously awakening, or we're removing ourselves, say, from this filter, and we're observing these filters, and we're going, why is this filter here? Why are we, you know, repeating these filters or these atrocities over and over? We don't need to. Right? So that's what's happening. It's a great time to be alive, by the way, because now we can do it as a mass. And maybe that's why, you know, got invited here. So the deal is, though, that your family, that's another filter. So all the atrocities, including the good things that you're running, okay, and again, the family filters here or here. Anyway, one of the two is you. Okay. So what you do to define you, okay, to define Joe, or define Allison, or whoever is here, okay? What you do is that you have to weed through all the possibilities of what humans are or what humans could be, and then what your family chose from that. Again, say that abuse was a filter, that possibility of humans, and then your family used it more and more and more. So just like your, you know, brain synapses, right, they grow thicker and stronger and healthier. Well, those patterns or propensity for you to choose abuse in your lifetime and then pass it down to your kids, well, it makes easier. It gets easier because, again, it was a propensity for your parents. Makes sense to you? I say this because many of you, again, just run a copy just like your parents do. You might have different experiences, but the same outcome. And that's the key, and that's the point. So what happens is that here you would have to filter out, or you would have to, say, experience all those things, or understand about all those things that are available to you, to go, I don't want those. I just want the filters that render me. And that's how you create yourself here. Simple as that. Okay. But most of your time and most of your brain's effort here, and this is where the brain comes in, is going through the process, because it's like you're human. And then the brain goes, okay, he's not this, like every second. It's not this, to render you as you. That's a lot of, that's a lot of crunching, right? That's a lot of just processing information. And that's what your brain does all the time, by the way, to render you, or to make you think that you are you. It would have to go through that process all the time. Now, nature does it very differently. Okay. The universe, the planetary systems do it very differently. They don't go through this process. They don't hold on to all the things that ever had experience. Okay. And I can talk about that if you'd like, but again, that it might extend the talk. So we'll just leave that aspect alone. But XI is basically how nature does it. It does it in a very efficient system. Okay. You don't have to go through all those possibilities. That's not going to work for you. It's like, you know, you go to the store and it's a huge warehouse, but you only want, say, one or two things from that warehouse. And you, every time that you want something, okay, it's like the way, I hate to say it, the way they designed IKEA nowadays, right? You want, no offense against IKEA, it's a great store. You know, you go through IKEA, you want one thing. What do you have to do? Right? Have you guys gone through IKEA, or now how they go through the store? You have to go through every freaking aisle, everything, right? To go through the process, the maze, to find that one item that you knew where it is. Literally, your DNA, your genetic makeup does that all the time, every like millisecond to go, this is you, this is you, this is you. So notice how that's a lot of work, but then that's not even you. That's just a rendering of who you think you are. So non-duality comes when you start to observe yourself, not here, because if you're rendering yourself here, you do not know how you created these filters here or how many thousands or millions of filters there are between. And these are just a few filters, guys, by the way. Okay. Every experience that you have, like say, for example, somebody bullied you at school, or you got molested, or whatever, when you were a child, or whenever, that's part of your personality filter here. That's part of your frequency signature here. And that filter runs you for the rest of your life, unless you clean it up. So if you've ever wondered why addictions and so on like that, they're hard to remove, or you just have to deal with it, and you don't with XI, is because it's turned into a filter. Any experience that you've, say, gone through that's impacted you has created a filter that you see the rest of your life through. And I'll say that again. Any experience that has impacted you, whether it's once or several times, that has impacted you at a genetic level, creates a filter. As you create that filter, you'll see the rest of your life through that filter until you remove it. How do you remove it? Again, nothing psychological here, okay? Your psychology, it happens way before, way after, okay? So what you do to understand becoming knowing, okay? And then both definitions of duality and non-duality would be wrong in the XI definition, okay? So, and this gives you a better definition. So what you want to do, especially if a near death happens for you and you can take advantage of it. And again, I've helped tons of people who have had near death experiences, like decades ago, recreate that experience because it's a timeless moment. These are all time-bound moments because the first filter, again, is here, space-time. Okay. So, and that's really the key. What you want to do, if you want to understand duality and non-duality, is that you start to become an observer outside of yourself. So you start to become an observer out here. Let's make a better. You start to become an observer out here, looking at how, this is wrong too, sorry. We'll do, sorry, I was getting used to this drawing app here. I have another drawing app, but it didn't work. So here, so it's a feedback loop. Okay. So the first thing to become dualistic and then non-dualistic is to understand that you have to separate yourself on how you see yourself or how you render yourself here. So from this point of view, you start to see, or again, you have to remove yourself literally of space and time. Well, it's like, well, how the hell do you do that, right? Well, you can do that. You can start observing yourself on how you render yourself, even though you're in space and time, okay? A near death obviously speeds that process up because a near death basically pulls you up, not to this level, not at a spirit level, because you're still bound in space and time. That's why you can come back, okay? But aside from all the details that again, we can talk about later, a near-death experience basically allows you to pull yourself out and then view yourself to go, oh, this is the limitless self. And this is where a lot of those near-deathers go, whoa, this is so unbelievable. They get the choice. How many of you NDErs have had that choice? It's like, oh shit, this is so beautiful. This is amazing. I want to stay here. I want to come back. I don't want to go down here. because you're seeing all the filters, right? But then you don't have that choice. And then you get pulled back here. But then your yearning is always here, right? And then this is where suicidal thoughts, depression, and so on like that come through for a lot of people, again, especially like I said, young children that have had NDEs, because they can't handle all the filters because they don't know how to get rid of it. And that's where the problem occurs. And that's where XI comes in to go, hey, life is just a filter. You know, you're a grand version here. All you got to do is remove these damn filters here. And that's the key. You remove these filters here, and then you still render yourself here. This one last aspect, maybe two, maybe three last aspects. Sorry, guys. There's so much to teach in a very short period of time. And again, it's very different. Hopefully you're enjoying this. But this gives you the logistics, not just like you're going to feel good. Just think of love, or, you know, sing Kumbaya. And again, I have nothing against those things. They're really great. You know, cultural festivals and those things, those are really great. But you want to do it with an understanding, say, of science or the basics of how you work. And then those things will, rituals and so on like that, will work. Religions and spirituality will work better for you. That's all. No matter what you choose. It doesn't really matter what you choose. Okay. That's really the key. So the one last point is that again, your mind is here. Okay. Your mind does not understand any of these filters here. You might get recollections, or you might get, some of you who are, say, more awakened, you basically in dream states and so on, you pass beyond the human filters, and you might, say, experience yourself at this level or this level or this level, or a family lineage level where you experience, some of you, you know, who are, say, like your great grandmother, right? You're experiencing her life in your dreams or through your physical body, because again, you tend to operate from this filter here at times. Simple as that. Okay. So the key is to be non-dualistic and dualistic, because that's what you want. Okay. So an understanding, and most people go, well, I just want to be non-dualistic. Well, you really can't, because then you could never render yourself here, because this reality is of space and time. The first filter for you is to understand space and time, which has to include reference points, because time is a reference point. Last second, this second, the next second, it's a reference point, right? You'd never know tomorrow if you didn't understand today or the future. Again, reference points. That's where dualistic identities are very important. So you don't want to get rid of those, because if you do, none of this works here. And if none of this stuff works here, this is kind of cool. There we go. So if none of this works here, you'd never create yourself. And then you would have no recollection of what the experiences that you have here for. Okay. So that's really the key. There you go. It's kind of a cool app, by the way. Spotlight arrow. That's cool too. Anyway, we'll use the pen. So yeah. So hopefully that's understandable. So the key that I'm trying to get across is that you as a whole do not want to be dualistic or non-dualistic. You want to understand, again, from a point of view, whether it's through a near death or other form, like, say, XI, which is one of the best out there, that you can, say, pull yourself outside of yourself without having a near death experience, and then you start to look and observe. It's like, wow, okay, now I understand why I'm running the relationship that I'm running. Now I understand why that I'm aging like my mom and dad. Now I understand why, because then you see the filters. And once you see those filters, that's half the battle. And then that's where you just go, I don't need to run these patterns anymore. And then you start removing, and I don't know if I can do that here. You start removing, some of these filters here. Oops. You don't want to remove that whole filter, but You start removing, again, not the filter, but you start minimizing, say this human filter, where the human filter, you don't have to go, since I'm not going to use, burning people at the stake and, gutting their eyes out and all the possibilities of that, I'm not going to use that. So what I'm going to do, see if I can do that here. I'm going to cut this. I'm going to eliminate a lot of these filters here. So, and this is what XI does, or this is if you want to become self-actualized, with or without XI, doesn't really matter. It's like, gosh, I'm not going to use those filters. So if I'm not going to use those filters, why have my genetic makeup run through those filters, right? It makes it more efficient. The family filters, I don't want a lot of the family filters. There's a lot of good family filters that I want. So again, you go through the process and you go, shit, I don't want the negative shit. I don't want the negative garbage here. And this is where you remove it. And then in time, you render yourself very different. This is where people have changed, again, how they age, how they get diseased, or how they stay healthy, how they get younger, how to recover, how to have fantastic relationships and so on like that, right? But the key is that you want to be at a point or at a level that you're both, okay? It's got nothing to do with a God or you, okay? That's a whole different subject that we can get into, maybe in divinity, but becoming dualistic, understanding that you're both, okay? Understanding that you need both to render or have consciousness to understand that you are existing in this plane. So pulling yourself out here, understanding that you are both, say, spirit, and then the end product of all these filters. And as you understand it, like I said, all these filters you get to clean up more and more, just like nature does, or the process of what evolution should be. And this is how you become, say, a better version of yourself. A lot of times you can remove, not just say clean up, but you can remove a lot of those filters that you run. Like say you've had, again, in your family, abuse patterns, right? And this is what really happens. Say that you have abuse patterns and severe abuse patterns in your family, right? You tend to attract abuse, right? And this happens with, say, luck and everything, but nobody wants to remove luck patterns. So abuse patterns. So you get to a point where you've removed it here, you've deleted it here, okay, in your personal frequency signature. What happens is that you cannot, say, experience abuse anymore. And it sounds kind of crazy, but you and those people who've done it, it's like, yeah, you know what? I can go back to my childhood thoughts, and I can see the experience of what happened, but I cannot run those patterns. I cannot run those emotional valleys. I cannot render myself in that state anymore because they're not available to you anymore. And again, that's how you clean up yourself, your family. It's so powerful that especially if you have younger kids, your family starts to clean up as well. Okay, so that's how powerful it is, because, and again, this is another subject, but your DNA is always learning to be its best self. Okay, so when your kids look at you and you go, damn, mom or dad they're so efficient, they're so congruent, they're so in tune, they're so present in time, because you've removed all the filters that you're never going to use anyway, right? And you're really here. And that's what you hear. That's what I hear from a lot of kids' parents that use XI. And then the kids change and adapt as well.